Hey, are you struggling with your accuracy like a majority of the gun population? Could be your trigger prep, among many other things. Hey, I'm Richie with Raw Tactics, and today in this video, we're going to discuss proper trigger preparation. So when it comes to accuracy and you being inaccurate, a common problem could be your trigger manipulation. Now, when I talk about trigger manipulation, what I mean is that when you put your finger on the trigger and you're ready to fire, you are mashing the trigger. Now, before I demonstrate this, we just need to ensure that the gun is completely unloaded, no magazine, no bullets in there. We always visually and physically inspect to make sure our gun is unloaded. It is unloaded. We double check, triple check, we are good to go. So now I know I can manipulate this trigger in a way that is safe. So when it comes to trigger manipulation, some people put their finger on the trigger and they mash it backwards as fast as they can. And the problem in that is that when you mash the trigger back, you're flexing your thumb, your wrist, your palm of your hand, your other fingers, and it's causing micro movements in the handgun, left, right, up and down, which will obviously eventually affect your overall accuracy, left, right, up or down. So a way to remedy that is we like to go to the wall or trigger prep before we shoot. And what that means is when we have the gun out and the gun is reset, obviously, when we're manipulating the trigger, we put our finger on the trigger and we start going slowly backwards. As soon as we start feeling a little resistance, that resistance point is called the wall. The distance between the wall and the trigger completely being reset is what we call slack. So I'm going from completely reset to the wall each time, and you notice that the gun is not firing. Once I'm on the wall and I slowly move the trigger backwards, the firing pin drops, the bullet goes, the gun resets. So in between each shot, what we are trying to do is we have our finger on the trigger, we find the wall, we slowly manipulate, the shot goes off. And with that finding the wall and slow manipulation, it is reducing, if not eliminating, those micro movements of your hand, and that gun is staying as steady as possible, helping you become more accurate. The first step is getting familiar with your firearm. I need to know how much slack my trigger has, where my wall is, how much pressure I need in order to get past the wall, and how much pressure I need to stay on the wall without firing. So that's going to be on you. Remember, having your gun completely unloaded, double, triple checking, visually, physically inspecting, everything is good to go. And then this is just free practice for you in your own house in your dry firing. Remember, no ammo in the area, be in a safe area where you can practice. So, once again, remembering where our wall's at, knowing how much slack, and just overall, just being intimate with your gun. Just knowing your gun. You need to know this weapon. It is there to protect you. If we do not know how it works or how to manipulate it, it's not going to do good things for us. Step 2 is we need to know where our wall is at and how much pressure we need to apply with our trigger finger in order to hold that trigger on the wall without firing. We can manipulate the trigger in a way to where we stay on the wall and the gun doesn't fire. And if we don't need a fire, we index our finger. If we need a fire, we can go back to the wall, manipulate from there, and fire the weapon. But the second step after we know our weapon is finding that wall and holding it there without firing the weapon. Step 3, we know our weapon, we know the wall, we know how much pressure we need to stay on that wall. Now we can actually start the dry firing. So in the third step, we're dry firing, pointing the gun in the safe direction. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the wall, stay there, slowly manipulate the trigger back, and hold the trigger there. I'm going to pin the trigger to the gun as I manipulate the slide. Now, this is the tricky part. As I manipulate the slide, I am taking my finger completely off the trigger and racing back to the wall and holding there And ideally, we want to try to do that before the slide resets. Impossible, yes, but it is a good mindset to have, and it'll get your finger moving quicker and getting back to that wall as quickly as possible. Not only does that help you with your accuracy, but it'll help you later on when it comes to shooting at a faster cadence. So what that looks like, when the gun's reset, I find the wall, I activate the trigger, firing pin drops. As I reset the slide, my finger comes off, I'm already back on the wall. Hold it there, slowly go back, firing pin drops, reset the slide, my finger's back on the wall already. Slowly manipulate the trigger. Now, if I don't go back on the wall, you'll notice that as I pin it back and I reset the slide, I think I'm on the wall, but then as I slowly start to move backwards in the trigger, I feel slack and then I feel the wall. I'm like, ooh, I wasn't on the wall. I'm back on the wall now. Trigger breaks, firing pin drops, pin it back, reset the slide, on the wall, and fire. Once you get those steps down of knowing your weapon and practicing the dry fire of racking the slide and getting back to the wall as soon as possible, that will help you overall when you start moving into your live fire drills. All right, it's time to move on to our live fire, which is exactly the same as our dry fire, other than the fact that we have real bullets and now we're out on the range. We're still taking up the slack, we are still finding the wall, we're holding on the wall, and then letting that shot rip from the firearm. The gun is recoiling on its own, the slide is resetting on its own, so we don't have to worry about that like we did in dry fire. But now it's time to take our dry fire and move it onto the range. So we're at about 10 yards from an A-zone piece of steel, and we are going to duplicate this with good stance, good grip, good sight picture. I take up the slack in the firearm. I'm on the wall right now. I give a little pressure until it fires, and then I reset the firearm. I'm already back on the wall. I've taken up my slack, and I fire. And then you do that each time when you are firing in order to keep yourself accurate and consistent when it comes to manipulating your firearm. Trigger prep, trigger management, it's huge when it comes into your overall accuracy and if you want to start shooting at a faster cadence. I hope these tips helped you out. I'm Richie with Raw Tactics. Stay safe, and I'll see you later.